Good good morning. Well, it's morning here in Texas, everyone. I'm Melanie with owner of Wild Bakes and Cakes. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be a super fun class. We have a lot to cover. We are going to learn how to make a very fun Halloween skull cake, which skulls are my favorite things, and Halloween. So combining both of them, this is going to be a super fun class. So the class, little bit of disclaimer, the class is only an hour and there's so much that we have to kind of cover. And doing a cake usually has a lot of steps. And some of the steps require refrigeration just to make sure, your frosting is kind of set to make it easier to continue. However, we're not going to have that kind of time here to make it perfect. So my goal for this class is going to be to show you guys how to do all the steps, right? From beginning all the way to the end. We might have to rush through some of the stuff to get there, but we will get there. And if you guys are following, I'll try to give a little bit of time while we are creating the decorations. So maybe we have a few minutes, we can pop the cake back in the fridge just to make things a little bit easier for us and then bring it back out. So we'll get to that. But the goal for this class is to, especially for those of you who are very new to cake decorating, it does get a little bit overwhelming. I know I was in that place when I first started. So just take your time, don't stress. The class is being recorded, like Felicia said, so you can go back and kind of take your time and go through the steps and make your cake the right way, okay? But here we will, for today, we will learn how to level our cakes, how to fill the cakes, how to frost the cake, and at the end, how to decorate our cake. And once you know the steps, then it becomes such a fun little process because you can technically do whatever you want with your cake, right? You can decorate it any way you want to. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll try to get to it. If anything comes up after class and you need to get a hold of me, I'm usually very responsive on Instagram. My Instagram is Wild Bakes. So please, send your messages or comments or anything like that there, okay? So for today, like I said, we have a lot going on. I'll try to take my time and kind of go as slow as possible for those of you who are following along, all right? So with that said, let's dive right into my table over here, which I have a lot happening and we can kind of get started, okay? So for the cake, obviously we are going to need our cakes. And in the class handout, I had included a cake recipe and I requested for 2 cakes because we are obviously going to layer these cakes. So I made 6-inch chocolate cakes for my cake for today. All right. So I have 2 of those and we're gonna level these cakes and then we're gonna stack them and then we're gonna, buttercream them, get them all frosted and then decorate them. All right. So we have our cakes. We need a turntable. You also need, this is very important, a cake base, right? So we can have our cake sit on top of it. And usually the base for the bottom base, if it's a 6-inch cake, we obviously want something a little bit bigger, like a 10-inch. I think this might be a 10-inch one. So the cake sits nicely in the middle, okay? Michael's has so many cool patterned ones. They have the glitter ones. It's awesome. So you can kind of tailor it to your theme. All right. We obviously will need our buttercream. So I made a couple batches from the recipe and I have it white for now. So I can show you guys how to separate the buttercream and then color it for our base of the cake and then for our top decorations. Okay. That over there. We will need our fondant. So for this one, I can show you guys better this way, the black one. And I normally get the little packets from Michael's and they have so many different colors of these and it's awesome. You could just get them whatever color you want. They're easy to work with. If you work on a lot of projects, or there's a specific color that you want to do, but they don't have it pre-packaged, you can definitely get the white ones and then just color them with food coloring. Okay, so that's another option. But just be very mindful. Once you open the fondant, if you don't wrap them properly and store them properly, they do dry out very quickly, and then it just becomes a waste, right? And just kind of, then you have to throw it away. All right, so we definitely need our fondant for our decoration. And for this class, since we're doing the skull butterfly option, I have my skull, I think this is a cookie cutter, but any skull kind of mold would do. All right, and we have our silicone molds of the cool crowns and our butterflies. All right, and that's what we're going to use for our decorations. And to top it all up and give it this cool kind of pink shimmery tone to our decorations, Michaels also carries these edible dusts, like glitter dust. They're awesome. Oh my gosh, I love these things. And now, well, I used to get the little powdered form where you have to use a brush and kind of like you brush your decorations, which works great. But then now they have the spray version, which is amazing. And all you have to do is just spray away. So we're going to use, I'll show you guys how to use this, okay? For our top decoration, we will need our 2D frosting tip and obviously our piping bags. And I always talk about the sizing of the bags, and today would be a good example because they normally have the 12-inch and the 16-inch. The 16-inch is definitely what we're gonna want to use when we are trying to coat our cake with buttercream, okay, frost our cake, because it's a bigger bag. We need a lot of buttercream, so we're gonna utilize the big one. For our top decoration, because it's only, you know, just a few little things on top, we're gonna go with the smaller bags. All right, and ta-da, we have our cake leveler. This thing is amazing. Especially if you are new to cake decorating and baking and all of that. I still use this because it's awesome. And you're going to utilize this to kind of level your cakes so they're straight and we can stack them. Okay. You can also use like a big knife. A lot of bakers do that too. I tend to mess things up and then my cake becomes kind of lopsided. So I stick to this. All right, and I'll show you how to, if you guys have one, I'll show you how to use this as well. All right, I'm gonna clean up my mess here for a split second. And we're gonna start with our leveling of our cake. All right, put all this away. Okay, so we have our cake 1 and cake 2. This one already kind of leveled, so I'll show you guys this one. So the goal to level a cake is to remove the big dome that's usually on top, right? Because if you stack something else over it, it'll get wobbly and then it'll be a mess. And the best way to do this, and I know sometimes like when the cakes have like big domes, kind of like what mine does, you feel like it's such a waste of product. But you could definitely utilize your extra cake that you're going to remove and make cake pops, you know, things like that. So there's always other creative ways to use your cake. But the goal is, you see how this is kind of straight and then we go up into like this bumpy area. The goal is to remove the bump, okay? So we want to make sure that we are leveling our cake leveler string to match with the top area, okay? So our cake leveler, this particular one, which I really like and I got from Michaels, it has numbers on each side, which makes it easy to make sure they're both on the same number. Because if one is on 4 and one is on 5, well, guess what? Your cake is going to be lopsided. Okay, so just be mindful of that, because I've definitely made that mistake before. And there is no going back. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to put it straight on your counter, on your table, and then see where the string matches your cake. Okay, so if it matches kind of like where that straight edge starts, then you're good to go. If it's like super high, you can give it a try and see if you get some sort of a level space, then you can work with that too. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the way down. Okay, and but you definitely don't want the string to be all the way down here, because then you're just gonna waste away your cake. Okay. Any questions so far? I know this is a lot of information, so I'm trying to go as slow as, but as fast as I can. All right, so once we have a good place for our wire, we're like, okay, this is going to be a straight cut. And all you have to do is keep it tight on your surface, and you're just gonna saw it, right? And you're gonna saw it and move like this all the way to the end. You're not lifting it, you're not doing anything weird. You're just making sure the base stays at all times on the surface, okay? And go as slow as you can, because sometimes it starts ripping off your cake and some chunks will come up. But if you take your time and you go slow, then you'll be sure to have a very layered or leveled surface. All right, so here we go. I'm just gonna start sawing away, and you can hold the top, but I'm not lifting my base at all. It's just staying on the counter, and I'm slowly going all the way through until it comes all the way out. Okay, and then we're gonna lift it on. See how nicely leveled my cake is? And this is the extra. That's what I mean. I mean, you guys can, end up utilizing this and make them into cake pops or something like that. All right, put that away. And I already did my second one just because of time purposes. Let me clean up this area a little bit. But I already cut this one off. See, now we have two leveled cakes that we're going to start working with. Okay. All right, so the next step is to get our turntable and our cake base ready to go. Okay, so cake base, turntable, cake base, we're gonna put a little bit of buttercream in the middle to be able to make sure that when we put our cake on top of it, it actually stays in place. All right, so just a little bit, just kind of put some on there. And we're going to put our cake straight in the middle. Okay. That's ready to go. So now we're going to start stacking our cake. Whatever filling that you have, this is the time to fill it. If you're using buttercream, that's totally fine too. Then you're going to put your buttercream in here. I actually made a Boston cream. I'm going to utilize that, or I'm going to put that for my cake. Okay, so just go ahead and grab your filling of whatever it is that you're going to be doing, and just put it right on there in the middle. All right, you don't want to put too much, just put enough where we can spread it around and kind of take a look and see what's happening with it. All right, so just want to kind of mush it around, move it around. You don't want it to come outside of your cake, so you want to keep it within the cake center, okay? Just like that. You can use, I'm using this regular spatula, but you can also use one of these guys. These are awesome, and we're going to be utilizing this here in a second, okay? So either one works fine. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. So you just fill in your cake, and you want to make sure it's a little bit even on all sides, right? You don't want to have like a big chunk on one side and like not enough on the other side. And then just kind of gauge, it's like, okay, I really like my cake to have a lot of frosting, so I'm going to put a little bit more, or I'm fine with this, I'm going to continue. Okay, I'm actually going to put a little bit more on mine, just because the more filling, the yummier it is. All right. Get a little bit more. And the key is just to make sure you guys level it as much as you can, so we don't have big chunks on one or the other side. Okay.
Hey,
So now,
Melanie.
yes.
So there's a participant say, why not make a buttercream dam and then put the filling, I guess, on the inside of that?
Yes, you can also do that too. What you would do is you would put your buttercream in, the best way would be just put it in a bag, right? You cut the tip a little bit and you just go all the way around the outside of your cake and just do like one loop, right? And that creates like a barrier. And you put in your filling in the middle. So that kind of protects your filling, especially if it's like more of a liquidy filling for it to come out. Okay, but thank you for that. That's actually very good thing to practice, especially when you're starting out and you're brand new to cakes. Okay. All right, so we're gonna take our second one. Now, what I normally do is you can stack it like this, or I usually flip mine over just because I have a more hard surface at the bottom and it's pretty straight, right? So I usually do it this way, and this goes straight on top of your cake. Okay, gonna give it a little bit of a squeeze. You don't want to push down too hard and get all the gooeys out. And this is where that barrier would protect your filling to come out. Okay. So now we have our cake stacked, ready to go. So typically the next phase would be to crumb coat your cake. Okay. Crumb coating means you put enough buttercream around your cake to kind of cover all the crumbs and make sure the crumbs kind of stay in place. So when you are actually frosting your cake with your real buttercream, those little crumbs don't come out. Okay. So that's kind of the next step. So you crumb coat the cake, and then you would ideally put it back in the fridge to get it nice and kind of stiff, and then work from there. Okay. But I don't think we'll have that kind of time. So let me see what we could do. But I will show you guys the process of covering the cake right now. Okay. So for our, I'm going to put the cake aside for a split second because we need to get our buttercream ready. All right. So for our buttercream for this cake, we are utilizing gray colors, and which is going to be our black color. I'm going to separate my buttercream because the big portion of it is going to be very light gray, and that's going to go on the cake, on the base of the cake. So we need a lot more buttercream for that. And the second batch, we're going to do a little bit darker for the top decoration. Okay. If you don't want to do it that way and you want everything to be the same color, that's totally fine too. Just go ahead and utilize, just use what you have, and you don't need to separate your buttercream. Okay. But I'm going to separate mine because I want my top decoration to be darker than the bottom. It just gives it a good contrast. Okay. So actually, I could have done it the other way, because we're utilizing the same color. Let me show you guys something cool here too. All right, so the goal is to start with light gray and then add more black for the dark gray, right? So we can start here. I don't need to separate it just yet. Let's get the base gray that we want first, and then I'll separate what I need for the darker one and just add more black into that. Okay, I think that might be a little bit easier and faster. And again, these colors are very concentrated. However, with the blacks and the reds, I have to say, you have to use a lot to get the deep colors that you want. But luckily for us, we're not going super black. So we're just gonna, start with a few drops just to get that nice gray, like light gray color that we are looking for. And typically you would use like your mixer, hand mixer, or something like that to get the color incorporated in there. Okay, just gets kind of really loud in this kitchen. So I'm just gonna mix it with my spatula and get a nice gray color. I don't know if you guys could kind of see it's coming together. All right. And obviously, the more buttercream you have, the harder it is to mix it. But we'll get through this class. At least you guys are seeing the steps required. So when you go back and you're trying to make your cake, you know exactly what to do. Take your time and do it the right way. All right. Okay, I think I'm happy with my color. Let me show you guys how this came out. All right. I have a very light gray color that I think would look really nice on the base of my cake. All right. So now I'm going to separate. I'm going to take a little bit of it out because I'm going to utilize that for my top decoration. Okay. Let's get a little bit more. All right. So we have the base done. Now I'm going to put a little bit more color here to make this darker. All right. Mix that in there. I would love to see what you guys come up with and how your cakes turn out. So if you guys post it, please tag me, Wild Bakes and Cakes, or you can also tag Michael's, Make It with Michael's. And that way I can see what you guys come up with. Sometimes, you know, these Zoom classes they're great, but there's no interaction per se. So I don't really get to see what you guys, you know, end up doing. All right. So I have my darker one ready to go. Put that aside. And we're going to start with our cake. Okay. Now, if you guys have 3 layers or 4 layers, it's going to start to get a little bit tricky because it's going to start wobbling around. So after, I would say if I had a 3rd layer on my cake, I would probably want to stabilize the cake. And you could get those plastic or the wooden rods. They sell them at Michael's and they go straight down from the top all the way down to your cake. Okay. And you could do like 4 just to make sure your cake is very stable. And that way your cake will stay straight and not kind of lean over, especially when you're trying to frost it and have it fall over. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. But for what we're working with right now, it's totally fine. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys this cool little tip. It's like a cheating tip to frost your cake, but it's awesome. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how this works because this makes things so much easier. All right, so what you would do, use your bag. And the tip goes in there all the way down as much as it goes. Okay, and we're going to cut off the excess. We don't want to go too high because we don't want our bag to come out, fall out. And obviously we don't want it to interfere with our buttercream down here. Okay, so I'm going to cut that off. Or if you don't have the tip, you can put your buttercream straight into the piping bag and then just cut some of it off, and then we can use that to pipe it. Okay, so it's not a deal breaker if you don't have this. I just wanted to show you because if you guys end up seeing it, this definitely helps make things look nicer. Okay, so now let's get our buttercream in our bag. And I normally use my handy dandy tall plastic cup or glass cup. It doesn't matter. It just helps putting your buttercream in there. Okay. So like I said, the first step would be crumb coating your cake, which kind of the same process, but it's not a perfect process, right? It's just enough to cover your cake, and then you put it in the fridge, let it chill, bring it back out, and then you would kind of start from this phase, okay? And you need a lot of buttercream in the beginning. All right. what I got here. Oh, it's gonna be so pretty. This color came out really nice. All right, I think my bag is filling up, so I'm gonna stop here and see how it goes. All right, so now we're gonna push down. If you shake it, see, it's starting to fall out. So, trying to make a huge mess. Make sure you guys can see, sorry. Get it all down there, and then you twist, and you twist, and you hold it between your thumb and your fingers. Okay, make sure that's clean. All right, so the key is to have the part that's got like the little grooves to go on the cake, okay? And you're gonna start from the bottom. As you're spinning, you're gonna squeeze, 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 and then lift, 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 lift until you get all the way to the top, okay? And it's the same thing if you didn't have the tip. You would just cut your bag, start from here, squeeze your buttercream, and then slowly work your way up, okay? And you want this to be flat on the cake. All right, like that. And then just kind of squeeze and turn, squeeze and turn. You don't want to go too fast. Well, you'll definitely find your groove once you're doing it. Okay. All the way. All right, and we're going to start another layer and go up. So the key is to put as much buttercream on your cake as possible. All right. Because we can always take it off. The goal is to kind of cover our cake all the way. There you go. Okay, and then we're going to put some top, because you want to cover top of your cake as well, right? And then we're going to smooth it out. All right, get it all in there. Okay, so we have all kinds of fun tools to work with. We have our curved kind of spatula. We have the smoother, this kind. They also have this one. I think these are like pastry cutters, but they work great to smooth out your cake. Okay. And like I said, my cake's probably not going to be the best just because we're not cooling it. We're not doing anything. I'm just kind of going through the process to show you guys. But once we have the buttercream on there, now it becomes kind of smoothing process. Make sure you have your bowl next to you because you're going to have to scrape and kind of put away. Okay. So you hold it at an angle and slowly get the buttercream on there. And if you're getting a lot, you can take it off and scrape it off. Okay. But see how that tool already kind of gave us a good, nice, solid base to work with. Okay. And you just kind of work your way up. You don't want to go too thin, so you start to see the cake. That's typically what you would do when you're crumb coating. You're just getting just enough buttercream on there just to cover the cake. You see crumbs, you see the cake, and that's okay. So you cool it, you bring it back out, and then you start this process, okay? And then the top, same thing. Just kind of smooth it out. It's okay if it's coming out from the sides. We're going to clean that up as well. Okay, you always want to keep cleaning your spatula and then go back and try to cover and smooth as much as you can. Okay. And now we're going to switch over to this guy. This guy's awesome. So you kind of make sure you level it straight, right? And you put it at an angle. You don't push it in. You don't get aggressive. It's just a simple, gentle, smooth glide. See, that makes it easy too. All right. And then always clean your stuff. I'm going to use this now just to show you guys the difference. It's the same concept. It just gives me a bigger surface. Getting stuff all over my hands. All right. So we're going to go at an angle and try to get it as smooth as possible, and then wipe it off. You always want to wipe off your tools just to start with a cleaner surface, okay? So you just keep going, you keep doing this process gently all the way around until you get a smooth surface, all right? And the cool thing is when you do it on your own, you can say, okay, I'm in a good spot right now. I'm going to put it back in the fridge to let the buttercream kind of cool and get hard again. I'm going to bring it back out and I'm going to do the same process. Obviously, you're not going to put as much buttercream on there, but then you can go back and smooth things out where you get your cake to look really, really nice and smooth. There's a whole bunch of different techniques in doing that, but if you're a beginner, you know, once the goal is just to kind of learn this process, right? And then you can start perfecting your cake. And again, everything is just gentle turns. Try to smooth it out. Okay. Same thing, utilizing this, making sure we're getting the top, the sides, and smoothing it up. Okay, obviously my cake is not going to be as smooth as I would like it to be, just because we don't have a lot of time, but you guys kind of get the concept. Again, when you're doing it, take your time. You know, if you need to cool, the cooler the cake, for me, it's easier to decorate, to buttercream more and making it look like nicer and smoother. All right. So that's our cake. Now we're going to start preparing our decoration. And I think this is the time that we can, if you're doing it with me, go ahead and pop it in the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to pop mine in the fridge for a quick second as well.
Hey, Melanie, how long would you say approximately to leave it in the fridge? I know you said until it was kind of hard, but how long as far as time-wise would you say?
It all depends, like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It just depends on your comfort level of how comfortable you're working with buttercream. You know, sometimes I'll leave mine in there for about 10 minutes because that gives me a hard enough surface to kind of go back and redo the process and make it a little bit nicer. And like I said, there's so many different techniques to making your cake super smooth. And it just comes down to, at some point, preference. I know a lot of like advanced bakers and things like that, they just plop it on there and they do their thing and they're totally fine. They have so much experience and they've spent so much time doing it that they kind of already know the whole process, right? So for beginners and intermediate people, it's just whatever works for you, whatever you feel comfortable doing. You know, sometimes it takes longer because your buttercream wasn't stiff enough, or your buttercream's too hard, now it's not sticking. So those things also come into play. How long you need to refrigerate your cake, if that makes sense. I know this is like a super rushed like explanation and process, but I want to make sure we kind of get through the class. Okay, I hope that helped. I'll be right back. I'm going to shove this in there. All right, so now we're gonna do our fun fondant decorating work. Okay, I'm gonna clean up my mess a little bit. All this stuff out of the way. I love working with parchment paper because they're so easy to clean. You just wipe it off or put it in the trash and you don't have to worry about it. But cake decorating is definitely a process. It gets messy. There's a lot of different steps involved. Sorry. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So don't get frustrated for, you know, with your first couple attempts. It took me a while to get a handle on it myself. So just, give yourself a break. All right. Okay, so now we're going to use our black fondant. Okay, I already have a big batch, so I'm going to open mine there. Okay. So for our decorations, we're going to use our skull. So we're going to have to create enough space to be able to cut our skull. Okay. And then for these guys, we're just going to kind of shove in the fondant in the silicone molds. Okay. So for that, we don't need to roll it out. So I'm going to do the roll out first. And as far as thickness, we don't want it to be, when we're rolling this out, we don't want it to be super, super thick, but we definitely don't want it to be super thin either, because then it'll be very hard to manage it and try to get it onto the cake and, get it to stick. So let's see what we can come up with here. Kind of get enough out. All right. We're going to roll this out. Get a nice even surface. Okay. Let me see. I think this should be thick enough. And if you make here's another cool thing about decorating cakes. You can definitely go through this process way before you do your cake. Okay. If you have some time, like the day before or even the week before, you can get your decorations with your fondant ready to go and just store them properly. So they don't, if they dry out, it's totally fine. It's still edible. It actually will be easier to decorate your cake with. But just a side note, it doesn't have to all be done the same day, because it does get kind of overwhelming. Okay. So I have my fondant ready to go. Let's see if I can maybe show you guys thickness of this guy. Not super thin, not super thick. I'm going to cut out my skull. All right. And whatever molds or cutters you guys have, that's all totally cool. This is the one I'm using. All right. Put that off. And I got my skull. You guys can see that ready to go. Okay. You guys, I don't know if you guys see the thickness. So I'm going to put this aside. All right, now my skull is going to have a crown. And I really like this one just because it's big enough for his head. Proportionally, it's going to look nice on the cake. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. Okay. Obviously, you guys can get as creative as you want and do whatever you think would look best for your cake. All right. And all you have to do is sometimes you have to dust your molds with like cornstarch or something so it doesn't stick. I haven't done that yet, so let's give it a try and see what happens. And all you have to do is just, find what you want, put in your fondant, and just kind of make sure you squeeze it nice and tight, that you're getting all the grooves. Okay, you can roll it out if you want, like that. All right, and then gently lift. So this is where, if it's sticking, then you're going to need to powder it. Okay, but mine seems to be doing okay, actually. Very cool. You guys see that? So now I'm going to use either a knife or an X-Acto knife, which I love this tool, especially when you're cutting things out. It makes it so much easier. So I'm going to use this, but you guys could also use just the regular knife that I had one of it. Just a regular knife to cut it out. So the goal is to now cut the crown out nicely and gently all the way around. Okay, it's going to get a little bit messy, but it's all good because it's fondant, it's like Play-Doh. we can go back and smooth things out, but try to be as clean as possible when you're trying to cut it out in the first place, and then we can clean it up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut mine out real quick. Just kind of going through the sides, right? Making sure we're getting at least the main chunks. Okay. I'm gonna take that out. See? I think you guys could see it. So that's ready to go. I'm just gonna use my finger and kind of, clean up the sides. I think that's good to go. All right, I'm gonna put that aside, and we're gonna do the same process for our butterflies. Now for our butterflies, it all depends on what you want to do with your decoration, right? My goal would be to cover the entire cake all the way around, not the entire cake, but all the way around with just random butterflies here and there. Okay, so I'm probably going to need a good chunk of them, right? Maybe, I don't know, like 10, 12 of them. You can always make more if need be, but that's kind of my goal for my cake. And for the top decoration, like this one has a half butterfly, which I think would look really cute for them to sit on top of the cake. So I'm going to maybe make a few of those. So it's all about just kind of strategizing how you're going to decorate your cake and what you're going to need, right? And just kind of going from there. And that's what I mean. Like if you guys plan ahead, come up with a theme for your cake, plan ahead of time, then it'll give you a chance to prepare your decorations and have them ready to go. So when you're assembling your cake, all you have to do is now plop on what you got going on. Okay, so I'm not going to make 20 of these. I'm just going to make a couple just to show you guys how we decorate the cake and kind of go from there. Okay, it's the same process for the silicone molds. Like that, you push it in, or you can just roll it out. Sorry, I can't talk. Roll it on there just like that, and you're going to lift it. And again, if it starts to stick, then you want to powder it up. Okay, you can actually cover that entire thing and utilize all the butterflies or all the shapes that you have in there if you need them. All right, so I'm just going to cut a couple out just because we are kind of getting close to the end of our class, and I want to make sure we at least assemble our cakes as much as we can. All right, get that on there. All right, I'm just going to cut that out, and I'm going to cut one of the side butterflies for our top decoration so I can show you guys that, and then I'll go back and finish the cake after class, and then I'll post it again on my Instagram page so you guys could see it. Okay, how it all came out. All right. So I have my butterfly. See, there's like a chunk sticking out. No worries at all. You just use your finger and kind of tap everything in. Okay, I have my side butterfly ready to go. All right. So now let's go get our cakes. And we're going to start decorating what we have left. I'm going to do one more, sorry guys, just to make it look cute and give you guys a chance to, if you're working on your cake right now, it gives you a little bit more time. I know this is not enough time, but we'll make it work. Okay.
Hey, Melanie, while you're doing that, there's a couple of questions out there. One is asking, if you were to prepare your fondant ahead of time, what's the best place to store it, in a refrigerator or the pantry?
It all depends where you live and what the temperature of your like where you're at. So if you are in a very humid place, I would put it in the fridge because your fondant will start to get very sticky and yucky if it's sitting on the counter. Okay, and it just gets really disgusting. Yeah, fondant doesn't like humidity at all. But generally speaking, you can just leave it on the counter and it'll dry it up a little bit. If you don't want it to dry up at all, then I would put them in a plastic like Ziploc bag or plastic wrapping. Again, just keep it on the counter. If it's very hot, like I said, or humid, then you want to make sure it's in the fridge, okay? Because it does get pretty bad and gross looking.
And the second question was, what are some essential supplies do you recommend to have to do this as a hobby or a lucrative business idea?
Um, for that, I mean, you're gonna need a whole bunch of things if you're, especially if you're thinking about creating a business out of it. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and I know we don't necessarily have the time in the class to talk about it, but I'll be more than happy to send you that information. I can send you the list, my list when I started my business, and kind of give you an idea. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead and send me a message on Instagram, which is Wild Bakes, and I'll be more than happy to share all that with you, okay? Because we only have, I think, like 10 minutes left. But it's definitely doable. And the cool thing is once you purchase your initial like initial like products and stuff, then you're kind of good to go. So the big chunk usually comes in the beginning, okay? Because you use the same stuff over and over again, regardless of what you're making. All right. I am going to get my cake. I'll be right back.
And while she's getting her cake, I do want to let you know there is one question that I can answer as far as the fondant. The fondant can actually last quite some time as long as, like she said, it doesn't get any moisture to it. So definitely you can reuse the fondant again, just long as it does not get any moisture to it. Make sure that it is in a plastic seal, something that can keep any kind of moisture out of it. So definitely you can reutilize that.
Yes, fondant does not like moisture. I've had my share of problems with it. All right, so now we're gonna decorate the top of our cake. So I'm gonna show that real quick before we run out of time. We have our tip, which is 2D. Again, you know, this is just what I picked. You can use whatever you want. There's so many different cool ones that you can utilize, okay? So the tip for this one, we can just use the bag and the tip. Goes right inside your bag, okay? Make sure it's all the way down. And then you cut the tip off. Again, you don't want to go too high where your bag falls out. You don't want to go too low where it kind of interferes with your frosting. All right, I'm gonna cut that off. All right, now this is where I'm gonna fill my darker buttercream that I made, which is over here. Well, it's just back, and there we go. That's sticking. Okay, so I'm going to utilize my cup again. So get your buttercream in there. So it's ready to go. All right. And we're going to create like these cool little swirly domes on top. I think I might be able to do like 4, maybe even 6. We'll see. Okay. Get it all in there. All right. Yeah, sometimes I wish these classes would be a little bit longer just because there's so many steps, so much to do. All right. So again, you can give it a good tug or just get your buttercream all the way down there. Grab, twist, and squeeze, and always make sure you kind of check what's coming out, and you're always cleaning your tip between rounds, okay? Because the buttercream, if it's sitting there for a little bit, it'll kind of like crust over, and then you're not going to get very cool results once you squeeze it, especially onto what you're working on, okay? So now I'm going to mentally prepare where I'm going to put my little domes, okay? Just so you kind of know what you're doing, and start from the edge. So for this one, straight down, Okay, you're not touching your cake, you're just kind of hovering over and you squeeze and you kind of twist around, around like that. Okay, I'm going to go next to it again. I'm going to squeeze and just kind of create a little dome and do it all the way around. You can keep them kind of super close to each other. You can spread them out. It's literally whatever you want to do. It's your cake. Okay, so you're hovering, squeezing, and then twisting and squeezing as you're twisting and going up. All right, we'll do one more just because I have one more space open. Same thing, squeeze, twist, twist, higher, higher. And you want to make sure you're obviously keeping them kind of consistent, with the size and height, so it all looks nice. Okay, and while your buttercream is kind of wet, this is the perfect time to decorate with, if you have cool decorations you want to put on top, like sprinkles and things like that, which I'm going to do. Put a little bit over that on this one. It looks super cute. Now we're going to put our butterflies on there. It's going to look really, really nice. Okay. And we have kind of this space open in the middle as well. I think it would look very cool if I just kind of add more of my sprinkles on there and just kind of tap with your finger to make sure like it sticks. Okay, just very gently. You don't want to go crazy in doing that. Okay. And as far as decorating the side of your cake, these little beads are awesome. They're so tiny. They're very cool, and you can kind of spread them out throughout your throughout the cake, and it gives it a very cool kind of look to it. Obviously, it's very time consuming. I'm just gonna put a couple just so you guys could see, but it does give it a very cool character. You can use like little tweezers to put those on there. If you're good with your fingers, you can, obviously I'm completely failing at this as we speak, but just wanted to show you guys. All right, put it on there. Okay, so now we have a couple of those up. Now we are going to bring our cool skull. Okay, again, I'm preparing mentally how I'm going to put this on my cake. What is it going to look like? Because once you put it on there, there's no, oh, oops, I don't want it here. I'm going to move it here. There's not a lot of wiggle room for that. Okay. Once you're like an advanced cake decorator, you might be able to find ways to maneuver around that. But for the most part, what I do is I will make sure I know what I'm doing. I think I'm going to go like this with my decorations, and then find a spot that's going to be your front of your cake. Okay, the showcase kind of front this area looks good. I'm going to utilize that. All right. You can put a little bit of buttercream on the back of, and these guys are cool too. So this is the smaller version of that kind of curved spatula. All right, so I'm going to utilize probably the same color. Put it on the back. A good enough chunk, but obviously, you don't want it to be too chunky. Just enough where it creates kind of a glue effect. Okay. All right, so I want my skull to kind of sit there, and I'm going to gently put it on there and make sure I'm pushing in to make sure it sticks, but I'm not, shoving it in there either. Okay, that kind of looks good. It's sitting there. It looks nice. Now I'm going to put the crown on top. So I think that's going to go there. Again, I'm mentally, visually preparing where I'm going to put this. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some buttercream on the back. If you guys were preparing the decorations ahead of time, you would probably do the dust, glitter dust spray, and let it kind of dry. And then we would put all the decorations together. Obviously, for class time purposes, we're kind of powering through this. All right, so I'm going to put my little crown right on top. Okay, kind of sits right there. I think that looks good. Now I'm going to use, I have butterflies that I need to put over there. And again, this is where you kind of figure out, you know, I'm going to have maybe one on each side, or I'm going to have like two on each side, and then kind of decorate your cake from there. Same process. You kind of give it a little bit of a buttercream just to make sure it sticks, right? Oops. All right, got one. I'm gonna put that on this side, just like that. Okay, I'm gonna put one on the other side. And you would just, if you were doing your cake, obviously you would just continue decorating it all the way around, right? I'm gonna have the other butterfly kind of sit right there. All right. And this is where it would look really cute for all the beads to kind of be in between. You know, you can put some beads all the way around your cake, right? It will look very cute. Oops, this thing is not sticking right. Okay. I know we have a couple minutes left. So this is where this fun part comes in. The little dust spray. Now we're going to spray our black fondants, okay? It'll give it a very cool kind of pink shimmer color. It'll look very nice. And you can, you know, they have different colors. They have the gold version of this. They have copper. They have, I think, blue, like a cool gray kind of tone. So you can get creative there and do whatever you want to do. All right. And you just spray it. You just kind of spray on to make sure you get a nice even coat. Okay. So let's see. And it just kind of sprays this dust on there. All right. I don't know if you guys could see it. It's giving me little, but you could use a brush and kind of spray it out once you have it on there. Okay. Or like a paper towel or something, just to kind of brush it off and get it nice where it doesn't look too lumpy. But for now, I'm just gonna spray my stuff and then clean it up later. All right. Again, you can just kind of keep going. If you want it to be darker, you can do a cool rainbow effect. It's actually pretty cool the way it sprays out. All right. Got our little spray there. Okay, and like I said, you can use a brush just to kind of brush it nicely on there so it's evenly coated. And that's what I mean. If you prepare your decorations ahead of time, you have a lot of control on what you're doing. You're taking your time, you're making them look nice. You are, you know, covering it with glitter, with whatever it is that you need to do. And then it'll be easy, you know, once you have your cake kind of frosted and ready to go, you just pop it on there and you're good to go. Okay, so this was kind of a backward way of showing you guys how this is all done, but I wanted to make sure you guys saw the steps from leveling your cake, filling your cake, you know, putting the buttercream and using that cool tip that I showed earlier to make things easier, especially if you're a beginner when you're trying to, you know, buttercream your cake from scratch. All right. Hopefully this was enjoyable and you guys learned the steps. I know it was rushed, but again, I would love to see what you guys come up with. So if you tag me, I'll be able to see it. If you have any questions, send it to me on Wild Bakes. And again, you know, the class is recorded, so go back, take your time, watch it again, take some notes, and do it the right way. Okay. Chill your, you know, crumb coat your cake, chill your cake, frost your cake, and then kind of move on from there. All right. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this class. Thank you for joining me. I know we're kind of going over. I will see you guys in my next class, which is next week. And I think that one is a pull-out cupcake cake. that's pretty cool. It's you pretty much utilize cupcakes and you create like a cake form with it. And once kids are ready to eat it, all they do is just grab a cupcake and pull it from the cake and they're good to go. All right. Thanks again and see you in my next class. Bye, everyone.